All right, folks, welcome to March 3rd, Java Operators Meeting. Wow, time is flying. It's already March. All right. Let's see here. Do we have any new faces that have joined us this morning or afternoon that would like to introduce themselves?
Yeah, my name is Jasper. Chris told me to join this meeting because I'm starting a new operator. I have some questions around it.
Oh, awesome.
Hi.
Sweet. Let's see. Anyone else? All right. Let's go ahead and get started.
Yeah, I took the liberty of adding some topics for once.
I was
Because
like, I was like, wait, this was clean this morning.
Yeah.
Oh, good. That's awesome. Well, thank you for that. We can go ahead and get started on that. Getting Java on the front page. Yes, it is true. It is not there. If you go to
Yeah, that's I run I was a guest on OpenShift.tv, like the coffee break that they do a weekly hour to talk about OpenShift related subjects. When was it? On Wednesday, yesterday actually, and that was one of the feedback I got from there, talking about operator SDK being able to scaffold a Java operator, but not it being showcased there on the front page. So I think it would be good to get it there.
Yeah. The only reason we didn't put it up there was right now we made the plugin as it's still an alpha, but we can change that and then we can go ahead and put it there. The reason it was alpha is because the scaffolding changes that we were going through. If we made it like a V1, then we would need these migration steps to go from the different versions. With it being alpha allows us to change them without having to do some of those migrations. But I think it's at a point where we could probably take it to V1 beta, which allows us to go ahead and put it, because when we had the beta of V3, we have V3 beta, we were able to put that on the site. And it was a little more stable. So we can make that move and go ahead and generate it and put it on the site.
But how does that tie in with the operator lifecycle management? Because when I look at the code, I can't find any references to it, and it seems to be a crucial part of the official operator SDK.
Yes, that is actually that is not there yet. The OLM integration is being talked about. So we are aware of it not being there. We have made a few attempts. One, there is currently an Epic, and I think I need to create an upstream issue for this. The SDK team is looking at making the OLM integration like a plugin so that it can work with any language and any plugin. Today, it is pretty separate, and the thing that we hit was the current OLM integration uses a config directory that is standard across all of them that the Java one does not use right now. And it kind of conflicts with some of the stuff that the Java stuff was using. So that's why it's not there yet.
But how does that tie in with the certification levels of the operators then?
it would mean that the SDK itself, the operator framework SDK, does not. It puts the onus on the operator author to create the bundle. That's what happens.
Okay, so actually, I have some news on that front. On the Quarkus extension side of things for the Java operator SDK, at least, we are finalizing the pull request as we speak, actually, but we do have bundle generation now, and there's one of our samples is actually run via OLM and OPM and all that good stuff on CI on GitHub, and we have to document that, obviously, better than it currently is. But yeah, the Quarkus extension, I mean, that is, if you use Quarkus with the Java operator SDK, you now get the bundle generated for free, more or less. I mean, we still have work to do to refine the RBACs that are being generated, actually. But otherwise, there's already some sort of support for that.
So Chris, this means that it's going on the operatorhub.io as an official framework or not?
I do not know what that means for that perspective. I mean, that's actually why I added a point to the agenda to discuss that topic, because I'm not sure what would be required from the Java operator SDK side of things to get into the maturity level scale or whatever that, I mean, to get into that process, basically. So, but yeah, if you look at, maybe I can share my screen. Yeah.
If you want to share your screen to walk through it, that's fine. I can do that.
Oh, we can go through your agenda and then we can take this afterwards. So yeah, people can jump off if needed.
Okay, we can do that. It shouldn't be too hard. Plugin bug, okay.
Yeah, there's a bug, and that's my fault, actually. So the issue is that basically you need to use, whenever you generate something with the plugin or otherwise, actually. But since now, I mean, the Quarkus extension for the SDK, I started using a BOM file, which is a bill of materials. So it's a file that allows you to specify dependency, I mean, related dependencies with your project.
Mm-hmm.
And as part of that, it defines a Quarkus version that is associated with the extension. And what happens is that if in your project you're not using the same Quarkus version as the one defined that the extension uses, then you run into rather cryptic error messages, actually.
Interesting.
You can run into, well, no, this one is actually fairly explicit because that's basically an API incompatibility. So that gives you a hint that something is wrong, but that's the one, yeah. The runtime exception, talking about odd deployment and stuff like that, when there's actually no odd deployment going on. But that exception is a symptom of using a version of the Quarkus Maven plugin that conflicts with the Quarkus libraries, basically. So the error message is unfortunate, but that's the gist of it. So with the currently released version, what happens is that when you scaffold the project, we generate a POM file that uses the Quarkus SDK, I mean the Quarkus operator SDK extension, version 3.0.2. And we say, okay, let's use Quarkus
270.
270. But the problem is that 302 actually uses Quarkus 263. And that's what's causing the issue. So I fixed the issue by actually upgrading the SDK because it's been a while. So I updated to 304 and synchronized the Quarkus version. So the fix is rather quick, but it could be confusing to users. So plus, I mean, obviously it needs to be working out of the box anyway. So
yeah. So
and
then
that leads to well, I didn't put it on the agenda, but I put it in the ticket, I think. That leads to the idea that we need to have testing for that scenario, basically, so that as part of the test, we should probably scaffold a Java project, create a Java project, create an API. So just do very simple things like run operator SDK init and then operator SDK, create API, and then run a Maven build on top of that, so that we can actually validate that whatever we generate is valid. Because when I do the changes, I usually check the, I mean, I do those steps manually, but obviously if we could do them automatically, it would be better. And since it's manual, sometimes I don't run them, or I forget to run them, or I think I did and I didn't, or I think I'm smart and I decide, oh, I'm going to do one last change and not rerun the whole process, because what could go wrong, right? And so, yeah, we need to be able to validate those things automatically. So I created an issue as well on for this. This is not addressed by the PR, but we should definitely get that done.
yeah, I agree. I just created some action items on here now. Yeah, so the yeah, I'm not opposed. It's just probably model. We may model what the Hybrid Helm did recently, because they are the other plugin that is not in the same tree as the operator framework SDK. Like Ansible, Helm, and Go are all in tree, so all the samples for all three of them are in that repo. So we generate them. We do exactly what you say. We regenerate them, and then they are used as, from the testing perspective, from the E2E, we actually, after we generate, the generation actually gets tested before the PR is finished. And then we do an E2E. We use those projects as in our E2E tests and actually run them. So the one way to do it is to add it into that same test thing, but now you've got this, the generation is in a separate place. The Hybrid Helm took because they are separate, they actually will get a SDK repo and pull that in and generate it, and they integrate their plugin with the SDK, they run the scaffolding, and then that's how they're doing their testing. I think that's probably what we will do for this plugin, because it is out of tree and keeps it within the plugin's repo versus somewhere else. So I'll create issues.
It would make sense for PRs to be validated before they can get merged. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's I don't know if the plugin can work in isolation from the SDK itself.
It as is, it can't, and that's what the hybrid folks figured out. Is they actually will get the SDK and rebuild it with their plugin in it as part of
Yeah,
their
I mean
testing.
that's basically what I do. I change the mod file on my local copy of the operator SDK and rebuild, do a make install and then test with the operator SDK CLI that I built. So I assume it should be feasible to do the same within the context of a GitHub action or something like that.
Yeah. Let me see if it's out there now. I'll see it. Yeah, I'll double check because I know they were doing a similar thing because they had the same problem. And if they haven't solved it, then we can share what we find out. Because yeah, like I was saying, the existing ones that are in tree, they all get the test datas are here, and then our tests use these. And
but
one of
these aren't generated though, right?
they are. Well, what happens is they're generated as part of the PR. We have a test sanity check. If we they're not generated runtime, they're generated during they're checked at PR time. So when the PR is going through, it does we do this test sanity and we generate the test data, and then we run the SDK and generate it. And if there's, and actually no, we run the SDK and tell it to initialize a project. If it differs from this test generation, then we flag it and say there's a difference. You need to regenerate these so that there is no difference. So we can detect them. That's how we've managed that. And then we run that set through the tests.
Okay, but then what is being scaffolded is an actual operator project, right?
Yes, it is.
I mean, you have logic in it and stuff like that.
Yes.
So that you can use it in end-to-end test. Yeah, but that's not the case with the Java plugin, though. I mean, it just creates the bare minimal. There's no actual logic going on. So whatever gets generated can't really be used as in an end-to-end test because it's not. Well, I mean, it is. You can. It is an operator. It's just not doing anything.
Right. Right. And I mean, there's more nuance to this. It wasn't there. Like there is actual code here that actually generates the samples, and in here it uses the SDK code and adds more logic to it. So we are enhancing those test data.
But I think, sorry.
But I think for that's if we wanted that. That's what we're doing. But I think we would have to take a slightly different approach because of what you said. It's totally doable though. So I took a note.
Yeah, the bare minimal is because in this instance, the issue is that the plugin, I mean, the scaffolded, I mean, obviously we can get more fancy and get into deeper details of checking stuff, but at the bare minimal, we should check that whatever we generate compiles and
Yep.
runs.
Nothing worse than a tool that generates something that doesn't work.
Yeah, especially when the error message is
hot
cryptic.
swap.
So
But I think we could, can you hear me, by the way?
yeah,
Yes, I
yeah.
can.
Yeah, so I think we should generate there a simple reconciler or maybe a very kind of a very simple sample, and generate maybe an end-to-end test or integration test to also to showcase how to test the
Yeah.
operator, and then just run those tests, and we cover basically two things with that. So
Yeah, we should probably do that. That's a good idea.
Yeah, the thing that we're doing in the operator framework is you'll see we call init, we're calling the APIs, create API, and then
Yeah.
we add other things. Like this one implements webhooks.
Yeah, the problem is that I'm a little not worried, but well, I don't want to put too much code, too much generated code, because basically in Go it ends up in string, so it's opaque.
Yes.
So if you have a typo or stuff like that, I mean, the more code you have in string, the more likely it's gonna fail. And it's really difficult to maintain, basically. So yeah, it's a balance to be found between what gets generated and what needs to be maintained in strings to actually do the actual generation and do something useful with it.
Agreed. So yeah, I can look at, actually, we can look at that PR now.
Well, it's just a two-liner, right? It's you looked at it earlier. It's just updating the versions, and that's it.
So then, there you go. Shall I? There you go. We got that one done. Okay. So then I'll create some stories and issues for the testing, and we can talk about those.
I created one. If you look at
Oh, you did?
Yeah, 75, I think.
Oh, perfect.
75. But it's a very minimal issue. So
no,
feel
that's
free
fine.
to add more information as you feel is necessary.
Excellent. That way I won't duplicate it. Yes, but I can add some color to it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Please go ahead. Thanks. So yeah, then that's the what do we need to do to support maturity levels, and that actually comes from talking with Jesper. I mean, that's something that has been on my mind, though granted it hasn't been much of a priority, because so far we've been focusing mostly on the developer side of things. I mean, the developer experience and the APIs and stuff like that. But as you can see, we are starting to get into more of a product vibe for operators with the bundle support, bundle generation support, and so we need to look into what is needed for to be certified at a certain maturity level, and hopefully we can go all the way to level 5. But I have to admit that my ignorance on the topic, I don't know much about it, so I don't know what we need to do. Basically, I don't know what I don't know.
You're right. You're right. Let me actually find there's a diagram.
Yeah, I can give some background while you're finding that. So I've been tasked with writing an operator that will control the productization cluster for middleware, for the Postgres side of things. I work in Postgres upstream, so I'm purely C person.
Okay,
but I work
just a
with.
quick note. This is a community meeting, so don't say anything you you don't want.
Yeah,
And plus,
no,
it's recorded.
yeah, because
Uh,
everything will be upstream, so
yeah,
doesn't
but
matter.
I'm just
Yep.
saying that yeah, it just bears. I mean, it's better to repeat it.
Yeah. So the way I'm looking at it, I have to write an operator that has to be upstream that will control images on key IO and all sorts of stuff, right? So the reason why I contacted Chris was that one, that the Java operator SDK wasn't on Operator Hub. So my choice is right now: do I go with Golang or do I go with the Java operator SDK? So that's my angle to it.
I think it's whatever you choose. I mean, the Go will always give you the it's got the more mature stuff. Not more mature. It's because it was the first class citizen on the KubeBuilder and SDK operator framework SDK. It has a lot more of these things there. The Java one has all of the capabilities. It's just we're still adding the pieces like OLM integration, scorecard, and those type of things.
Yeah, and that's what I understand. And the reason why I'm considering the Java one is because the knowledge base within the group I'm working in is Java based. It's not Golang.
Right.
So.
Yep.
And
that
I'm willing
sense.
to wait, right? Because it will take me some time to actually get up to speed on what Kubernetes and what an operator does and all of those stuff, right? So you have time to catch up if there's stuff needed.
Right. And for instance, a bundle, we have some operator authors that do not use the operator SDK. They have created their operators in Go. They may use controller runtime, but they end up creating their bundles by hand. So there is precedence. So even if you did it for Java today and there wasn't a bundle generation available, you could create the bundle and get it into OLM. And then when the tooling comes back, you'll have the tooling to help you in the future. So there is an option to get it there if we're not there in time. As far as capability levels, Java, I suspect, would fall in the same boat as Go. Because it is a fully fledged programming language with access, and because there is an API to the Kubernetes cluster, you should be able to do level 5 operators. I think the thing, the basic install, I know it can already do. And upgrades, it's all based on your logic of how you write the operator. When you get
so
into
that means level 2.
Yeah. So then, and again, level 3, you get into the life cycle of your operand. So if you are deploying a database and you write the operator such that it can handle upgrading it, installing it, and maybe even doing a backup of the contents or dealing with failure recovery if one of the databases go down and you bring up another one and that type of stuff, now you're at level 3. Now for 4 and 5, I'm trying to figure out if there's tooling. I think, and Attila and Christoph
that's other tooling that is needed.
Yeah, because
metrics.
That's actually my question. I mean, does the SDK provide tooling to support those capabilities, basically? Because I mean, I can't really see the SDK itself providing support for level 2 and level 3 because those are really business logic specific, right? So
that's correct. And that
brings me back to the question of certification. Who certifies these operators? Is it just something that you say you support, or is there a test suite that you need to pass?
I'll have to confirm, but I've heard both. I've heard there are some checks that happen, but a lot of times some people will claim level 5 because they can do horizontal scaling, but they don't do anything else in level 5.
I mean, as far as the Java operator, we do have support for metrics. I'm not sure. I mean, alerts. I guess that could be built on top of metrics.
Yeah. So
Cloud
Christoph,
processing, I'm not sure what that means, but
the tooling, most like for the Go, we don't give you tooling to go and write seamless upgrades. It is up to you to write it, because Go is expressive enough that you can do that. That's what allows you to do a level 2. And that's why I think Java is expressive enough that you can write your operator to do a level 2 and level 3. As far as tooling for level 4, as long as we allow you to publish metrics, like for us, for the SDK on the operator framework SDK, we expose the metrics for you. So we have the port and everything configured, and all you have to do is write the metrics, like actually create the gauge for Prometheus and expose them. But we have already kind of set up some of the basic framework that you need to actually connect them to Prometheus. The autopilot type of thing, this gets down the fact of that your operator is coded in such a way that it can detect the state of your operand and recover and basically removes the notion of having a sysadmin that has to do it. You've replaced that person. So in this world, you are actually taking in metrics and getting active metrics from your database or active metrics from your operand, your application, and reacting to all of those. Say the CPU load is high, you start to scale it, or memory is high, you start to do other things. You can tune it and say, oh, let's do different aspects, and you're handling all of that from level 5. There are some folks that claim level 5 because they can do horizontal scaling, and we just recently put in something called auto pruning, which is a method, just a function, utility function in Go that allows you to clean up resources that may be left around. And that's the type of tooling that you might start to get into level 4 and 5, is figuring out what are the common things that folks are trying to do, and then allow them to have some functions or methods that they can use to make it easier for them. But really from 2 through 5, the majority of languages that are expressive enough and can talk to the cluster can usually reach all of them. That's why Ansible is here, is because Ansible can talk through all the way up, because they have Python clients that can talk through, and Ansible modules for K8s that can allow you to do everything from playbooks. Helm is at 3 because after a certain point, you can't do anything just from a simple Helm chart. So we developed Hybrid Helm. What that does is it basically puts in Helm plus some Go, and we allow you to write Go on top of that. So if you used a Hybrid Helm operator, out of the box, it becomes Helm, but then you can turn it into add Go code and take it to level 5 by expanding all of it.
But
So
I guess the question that I have, and I think Jesper has as well, is the certification. I mean, basically, since what autopilot means is application specific, right? So how do you? I mean, basically, is there really a point of those maturity level if there's no certification associated with it, and if anyone can claim a given level? What really? I mean, what does it really mean? I mean, it's kind of. I mean, I wouldn't say it's confusing because I understand the levels, but it feels like there's something official to it, but it's not clear how it gets.
And it seems like level 2 and above is really tied into OLM, or is that not correct?
Not necessarily. OLM is the vehicle for distributing these add-on applications with OpenShift. There is an OLM. There's an upstream OLM that allows you to install OLM in Kubernetes as well, and to try to make it easier so you can focus just on deploying through OLM, but it is not a requirement as far as I know.
I think what is a little bit confusing on this picture, or might be confusing, that it talks about two things. One is the maturity level of the operators and the maturity level of the operator frameworks, what they can cover, right? So if somebody talks about the level 2 is a seamless upgrades, patch minor and the version upgrade supported, it's not really about the operator, it's really about the operator logic, if it's able to upgrade the managed resources itself. Or do I understand it correctly?
It
Yeah, I think
is.
there's a. Sorry.
Yes, the resource. So yes, so in other words, a level 2 operator can like if it was a Postgres one, knows how to patch and upgrade Postgres, the thing that it is managing.
Yeah.
Not
so
necessarily itself.
So it's basically, so it's not related to OLM, Jasper. I think that you meant that way, right? So level 2 talks about the operator logic itself, not about the capabilities of the operator framework.
Yeah,
Right. I mean, there's
like I
some
told
kind
Chris,
of confusion though, right? Because sorry.
like I told Chris, level 3 is much easier for Postgres to implement.
Mhm.
Level 2 is very hard because you can't have any downtime.
Right.
Also, the level 4 and level 5, I don't know, like, is there really an ordering between these two? I mean, I can have very horizontal scaling, but I don't have alerting. It's more like I don't see really a relation between these two levels that are after each other. I mean,
Yeah, I can only speak for Postgres. So for level 4, it's just aggregating the Prometheus data from the entire cluster into the gauge that is exposed for the service. Level 5 is horizontal scaling with adding read-only replicas to the cluster and offloading that traffic to those nodes.
Yeah, but again, so it's level 4 in this metrics and alerts are the metrics and alerts of the operator.
Yes.
In this case, so that's I think a little bit confusing on this picture. That level 2 talks about the patches and minor version upgrades, but it talks about the managed resources by the operator, and the level 4 is metrics and alerts, but it talks about the operator.
I thought it was on the underlying platform as well.
No, because the operand is managed by Kubernetes, like metrics and things like that are simple Prometheus exposed endpoints by it's not the operator doesn't expose the metrics endpoint for the managed resource. It just exposes the endpoint for the operator itself.
Okay, that's not clear at all in the documentation.
Yeah, I mean, I think the confusion is that some of those things apply to the, like you said, Attila, some of these things apply to the framework or what the framework allows you to do at the operator level, and some of those actually apply to the relation between your operator and its operand. Like, can it get, I mean, deploy metrics for your operand and react to them accordingly. So there's some kind of confusion there, I think.
Yeah, I think level 4 is a kind of exception. It talks about the operator itself, not the logic, but level 4 talks about the framework more than the other stuff.
No, these are all good comments. These are excellent. I will say that these were here before me, but another resource, and I mean, this is more for folks that are internal. If you are developing an internal operator or deploying it through OLM through OpenShift, there is an operator framework office hours where a lot of the PMs are on Thursday mornings at 9 a.m. Eastern, and they are a lot of these type of questions about these levels occur there. So it is a good place to be as well. I will try to get a little more clarity on some of these as well for you guys. Because it is something that's starting now to come up. We're hitting that next, maturity level. In the early days is how do I create an operator? How do I scaffold them? And then they start asking, how do I test them? What's the next thing to do? And now we're getting into how do I get to these other levels? But as far as a certification, I know that there are some checks in our pipeline that kind of make sure that things are compliant, but I don't know if they actually are certifying whether it's level 5 or level 4. So we'll get an answer to that.
And so actually,
The
what
levels
is
are
that? I mean, how do you
actually-
get
sorry.
into that pipeline? I mean, how do you get if there are some tests that are going on, what is required for an operator to go through? Is it when you publish your CSV on Operator Hub that gets triggered, or is it some other process that you need to go through?
I do not know the answer. I think I should, but I don't.
Yeah, that's basically like you said, there's two sort of pathways. One is, if you want to have it as certified as a Red Hat operator, and one is via the community operated repo. The more rigorous testing happens when you're trying to certify your operator. But even when you create a pull request to the community operator repo, there are some tests that run automatically.
Okay.
Sid, is that in a public repo or something we can see
Yeah.
before we submit?
Yeah, they're both public repos. You should be able to see them.
So I had a question for you, Jasper. Okay, just you don't have to get into the workings of your operator, but I'm just wondering, as you're trying to design it, I was just wondering if you found samples that are useful to you in terms of like they're a sample that is a jumping off point for you in creating your operator and Java operator.
To be frank, the MySQL operator seemed a bit out of date compared to what you have now.
You mean that the sample in there, the MySQL sample, that one manages schemas. It's not really right. I think it's not really.
Yeah, but samples
right,
should really be sort of hello world and introduce the different topics within the space. Because I'm very database heavy, I sort of know what the MySQL sample is going to do. But it didn't really highlight what the current operator framework is. And another point was that it should really focus on the local development experience. So maybe stick with like Minikube with OLM as the baseline, or go through all the steps of setting up Azure, Amazon, or Google account in order to get these examples deployed.
So just to disambiguate, because which MySQL sample are you talking about?
I found
the
it
Go
in your
one, or
repo.
because there's
No,
your in the
your one, Chris.
okay.
Yeah, I think I was probably talking about yours too, Chris, the Quarkus.
Okay.
I don't think that the Operator SDK has several samples, but I'm not sure MySQL is one of them, is it? Sorry, I can't look right now.
I mean, with the PR that we talked about for the bundle generation, part of that PR, there's a whole bunch of, there's a GitHub, a sequence of GitHub actions that it's not done for the MySQL operator, it's done for the joke operator actually. but we generate the bundle and then generate the image. I mean, we have the local development cycle, but we also test the full life cycle if you were to deploy your operator via OLM, and it would look like, and that gets validated as well, and that runs on top of Kind, I think. If I remember correctly.
Yeah, I was just curious if Jasper had found a sample that was helpful as a jumping off point for him. So that was yeah, it sounds like we could probably still use some like, and I really appreciate that you want to kind of back up on a sample that takes a developer's standpoint of like, you may have nothing installed, here's everything you are going to go to a working operator that you can actually test deploy.
Yeah, Jesus, if you want to look at the workflow, it's in the build. It's in the GitHub, the first file on top at your top left, build.yaml, yeah. And well, I mean, you only see the differences basically, but and plus that's actually the second PR because we had the first version, yeah. But if you look at the full file, it's probably better. But yes, see if you look, it first run the sample directly. And then, at line started line 100, it runs the sample using OLM. So it generates the package for the Java application. Then it does, based on the bundle that gets generated, we create a bundle Docker file. So we do a Docker build, Docker push. Then we use OPM to build the catalog image and push the catalog image. Then create an associated OLM catalog resource to actually make your, say that you want to use that specific operator. And then, no, that's not actually the catalog. I'm not an expert on that, so, and I didn't develop that part. So, but yeah, catalog source, I think it's to make your catalog available to the cluster.
Yeah, it tells
then
OLM
you create
that
then you create
catalog.
a subscription to actually deploy your operator. And then you deploy a CRD, and you deploy your custom resource and check that basically the logic of your operator gets executed. So you have the full, that workflow test both in local mode where you don't create the image and also test using OLM. So it takes it takes a while longer to test, but it validates the whole life cycle.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I haven't gone through that part because I don't have Docker. I only have Podman and Skopeo.
Well, we probably
and maybe the
to,
alias
yeah.
should work on these commands, but I haven't tried it yet.
It should. Because the Docker build that we're doing here, Podman should work.
Yeah, I don't think we use anything fancy Docker-wise, so.
No.
But I don't know.
Because I think this Podman was a little more specific in terms of its ordering of flags, and I think this is the correct way where the directory's at the end and the flags are in front. Because Docker, I think, can do them either way, but Podman really liked them one way because we had to make a change, something like that. But all in all, this should all work with Podman. And honestly, if you have a bundle,
yeah, and the bundle we create, like I said, it can probably get refined. like in particular with respect to the role-based access control. But yeah, you already get the bundle. So
If you have a bundle image, you can actually also test it with SDK run bundle, even if you did not generate it with that. And this does everything you just did. The subscription, the catalog source, it creates an ephemeral index on the cluster and can run it. So that's another shortcut that we've had folks use once they had a bundle.
Okay, that's good to know. Maybe we should use that in
and this does not it should not care whether you used SDK to generate your project or not. As long as the bundle is a real bundle, it will actually do that.
I mean,
But it says it's formatted by OLM, right? So
it will do, yes. It runs it. Run bundle will run it. It's doing exactly what Christoph showed in that. If I can find it again.
You showed it.
I showed. I'm sorry. What you described. It's doing all of these steps behind the scenes. Where we do the OPM index add, we do the create of the catalog source. We basically are creating an ephemeral image in the cluster, and then OLM installs it once we get this. And that's what these waits are for. We do the same thing. We wait for it to happen because that's OLM picking it up and running it. And then the purpose of run bundle is specifically to test, will my operator bundle work in OLM? Does it give me it's the warm and fuzzies? And that's the idea. And that's what you're doing. This is the manual way of doing it, and then run bundle encodes it.
Yeah, but we wanted to be explicit as to what were the steps. It's learning for us, right? So what are the steps that are required, and where do we need? We are iterating on that. Like this is the second iteration because we had the CSV before that, and we refined it, and now we are generating more stuff, part of the bundle. So yeah, and that should get merged probably this week, and we just need to have a Java operator SDK release so that we can release that branch. But yeah. So hopefully that addresses some of your concern, Jasper. I mean, as far as I understand it, it seems the onus of certification is mostly on the developer as opposed to what SDK you're using. So if you feel more comfortable with, I mean, at least that's, I understand it. If you and your team are more comfortable with Java, I would say go with Java, but.
Yes. I agree.
Yeah, I think so as well, Chris. So and like I said, the team is me, so there's no team actually. And my primary goal is to get this up and running in a level 1 type of environment for deployment, and getting that on operatorhub.io. Those are my two major concerns at the moment. But there's no timeline or to reach that point. So I'm willing to wait on getting those tags in and getting the OLM support into the Quarkus operator.
And we should check also what is required to publish on operator.io.
Yeah, because that's a mandatory requirement for me.
Yeah,
the development is not funded unless I can get it on Operator Hub.
Okay. Because we got I still have an operator on Operator Hub, but I didn't do the publishing on it. So I don't know exactly what was required. I mean, as far as I understand, the difficult part was the CSV generation. So as long as you have that information, I guess it's a matter of opening a PR
Yeah,
on Operator Hub with.
it's unclear to me as well, because like Camilla's operator is listed on operatorhub.io, but it's something she worked on in her spare time. So, but that was using Golang, of course.
Is that Macedo?
Yeah.
Camilla? Okay, I'm
Yeah.
gonna make sure it's the same Camilla because we know a Camilla too.
Yeah,
Yes.
and her operator is actually a Postgres operator, and it's listed under dev2dev.com as the organization, her private website.
Okay.
So that's really, but it sounds like that's more of a PM type of question
Yeah.
Yeah.
on how to get it and how to get it certified.
Yeah, but that's still, I mean, that's still interesting to me because whatever the answer is, we need, I mean, I need to see, is there anything I can, I can implement in the Quarkus extension to make it easier, right?
Yeah. And then that's my main concern, right? I don't want to start on the Quarkus, using the Quarkus extension, go 2 months down the line, be ready to publish the first release, and then get basically, no, you implemented it in Java and it's not certified.
Yeah, as far as I know, that is not a requirement of any of them. Like if you wanted to write a bash operator, it should be able to. I think the certification comes in terms of bundles and comes in terms of it's not specific to the language that it's done.
No, but then we get back into the discussion of, is OLM a requirement to get from level 2 to level 5? Right,
Oh, I
like
see.
you said,
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
reasons why Helm is not level 5, right?
Right. And that's just
And I don't want to go into those scenarios.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, I think Java will suffice. I mean, will do what you're able to do, and I don't see any reason why Java could not be a level 5.
No, I
But-
don't see that either, but the problem is it's just that I'm not seeing it on the website at the moment as an official framework.
That's fair. We can fix that.
Yeah, I think it's like, I mean, I think, yeah, it's a PM level kind of questions that
Yeah,
we definitely need to address, but just to be, I mean, obviously those operators don't have that constraints of being published on Operator Hub, but there are already operators written with the Java operator SDK running in production at Red Hat, so, and probably elsewhere as well. So the concern should not be a technical one, I would say. But yeah, there are issues with the process that are outside of what is technically feasible as opposed to what is mandated or regulatory. So I don't know. Yeah, I can't answer those questions, unfortunately.
Yeah, because I haven't seen any other sites that promotes operators. If there are other sites, then that might be okay from an open source point of view.
Well, there's Artifact Hub, I think, .io, where you can publish as well. And it's more than operators, but I guess it's a competing site with operator.io, Operator Hub, I mean. But yeah, I mean, if it's a strict requirement that you reach level 5 and being published on Operator Hub, I can't really say what is required to get there.
Yeah, that's what my boss told me, right? So he might be wrong. So
Well, it would be interesting to know what the reasoning is behind that, but I guess that's for another time.
No, it's about exposure to the
Okay.
operator itself, the GitHub associated GitHub repo, and the associated key IO images,
Okay.
because everything is
sense.
being pushed upstream, right? So
Yeah.
I need some sort of like entry point for people that wants a purely open source Postgres operator with associated images to go to and discover the projects that are involved with it.
Makes
Okay.
sense.
And that's currently operatorhub.io.
Okay. Well, I appreciate all the questions. We are at the top of the hour. Jesper,
Yeah,
you're
sorry,
more than
Jake.
welcome. Oh no, you're fine. This is
Yeah.
actually what this meeting is about, is for these type
Okay.
of topics. And I do appreciate the questions. And I will get as many as I can, and I'll let Christoph and everyone know, and maybe bring them back up next week as well. You're more than welcome to attend next week, and we can kind of continue talking some of these topics. I pushed the scorecard question to next week. We can talk about that there, and appreciate everyone's time. Thank you for all the questions and discussion.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you for your feedback.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye bye.
Bye.